The Last Border. Prologue, the river that eats men alive. They say the Javari River has a hunger. Not for fish. Not for silt. For men. The locals whisper it at dusk, when the trees shift like giants stretching in their sleep, and the fog rolls out of the water in slow, ghost-like curls. The river has taken explorers, hunters, soldiers, missionaries, poachers, even entire patrols. Some vanish without a sound. Others scream. Echoes swallowed by the jungle before any living soul can reach them. Some call the region the Last Border. Not a border marked on maps. A border between civilization and something older, something that remembers when the world was young. But none of that mattered to the man currently sinking into the mud along its edge. Ethan Cross pressed his hand against his ribs, blood leaking through his shirt, not fast enough to kill him yet, but fast enough to worry him. The jungle thundered around him. Insects, monkeys shrieking in the canopy, 1,000 unseen things moving through leaves, and behind him men, armed, angry, close. He heard their boots crushing wet foliage. Heard someone cock a rifle. Ethan limped forward, boots sliding, breath ragged. Night was coming fast. Darkness fell hard in the Amazon, like a switch being flipped, and night here didn't belong to humans. He stumbled down the bank, slipped, hit the mud face first, and tasted the river. Bitter, metallic, wrong. A flashlight beam burst through the trees behind him. There! A voice yelled in Portuguese. He's bleeding. He won't get far. Ethan pushed himself up, swayed, and stepped into the water. The river felt warm, too warm, like a living thing welcoming him. He had no strength left, but he stepped deeper anyway, because whatever was behind him was worse, and whatever was ahead was something he had to face alone. The water swallowed him as gunshots cracked through the trees, and Ethan Cross disappeared, just another soul taken by the river that eats men alive. 3 weeks earlier, Ethan Cross hated Miami in the summer. The heat, the traffic, the tourists, the fake smiles, he hated all of it. It reminded him too much of the life he'd already lost. A marriage dissolved, a badge turned in, a child he never got to watch grow up. The city was filled with ghosts he'd rather forget. But today he had no choice but to be here, because the DA didn't call him unless things were truly desperate. The elevator doors opened with a dull ding on the 12th floor of a nondescript government building. Ethan stepped out, wearing the same faded jeans, boots, and gray t-shirt he'd worn for 3 days straight. His beard was rough. His eyes carried that exhausted, 1,000-yard stare that made people quickly look away. Inside the conference room, the air conditioning blasted like a wind tunnel. Maps covered the walls, satellite images of jungle, rivers, border outposts. Ethan instantly recognized the tri-border region, Brazil, Colombia, Peru, the greenest, densest part of the Amazon basin. Also the deadliest. 2 people waited for him. Agent Marissa Hale, all business, early 40s, sharp eyes behind rectangular glasses. And Colonel Rodrigo Silva, Brazilian Federal Police. Muscular, stone-faced, scars on his knuckles that told stories without speaking. Hale exhaled when she saw Ethan. Cross. Thank God. I wasn't sure you'd come. You didn't give me much choice, Ethan said, pulling out a chair. Urgent matter. National priority. Lives at stake. Hard to ignore a message like that. Hale slid a thick folder across the table. Inside, photos of men with machetes, burned patches of forest, makeshift labs, bodies floating in rivers. This is the Red Jaguar Syndicate, Hale said. An Amazonian cartel expanding fast across Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. Brutal, unpredictable, and extremely well-funded. Silva leaned forward. They're ghosts, he said. Every time we find a lead, it vanishes into the tree line. Ethan glanced at one photo, a gutted clearing with charred earth still steaming. What's this? Hale took a deep breath. A hidden laboratory. One of many. They're destroying protected Amazon land and setting up something big. We don't know what yet. Ethan raised a brow. And you need me because? Hale clicked a remote. A screen lit up. A grainy drone photo. A man kneeling, hands tied behind his back, surrounded by armed guards. Ethan's heartbeat stuttered. It was David Reyes, Ethan's former partner, the one man who'd stayed loyal when everyone else turned their back. The man who saved Ethan's life in Medellin 7 years ago. Hale spoke quietly. He disappeared 10 days ago. Last intel places him deep in the Javari Valley. We suspect Red Jaguar captured him. Ethan closed his eyes. Silva folded his arms. You know that jungle. You know how to move there. And Reyes trusted you. If he's alive, you're the only one who can bring him back. Ethan opened the folder again, hands tightening. He didn't want this. Didn't want the memories. Didn't want to face the Amazon again. But some debts can't be left unpaid. He closed the folder. When do we leave? Hale exhaled with relief. Silva nodded once. You and your guide depart from Tabatinga in 48 hours. My guide? Ethan asked. The colonel handed him a photo. A young woman, maybe late 20s. Dark hair in a braid. Tribal tattoos on her shoulder. She looked strong, fierce, and confident. Her name on the file. Arya Karamati, Amazon tracker, last of the Karamati bloodline, expert in jungle survival. Ethan frowned. I work alone. Silva smirked. Not in the Amazon, senor. In the Amazon, the jungle eats men who walk alone. Ethan sighed. So who is she? Military? Indigenous Federation? Hale shook her head. Something else. Half the agencies who worked with her think she's a myth. The other half think she's trouble. Which half is right? Probably both. Tabatinga didn't feel like a city. It felt like the end of the world. The heat slammed into Ethan the second he stepped off the tiny plane. The air smelled of diesel, sweat, river mud, and ripening fruit. Everywhere he turned he saw soldiers, stray dogs, motorcycles, fishing boats, market tents, kids running barefoot through alleys. A place where borders meant little. Money meant everything. And danger moved in the open like stray cats. Ethan tossed his duffel bag over his shoulder and walked toward a crowded riverside bar with a rusted sign. Bar du Fim du Mundo. Bar of the end of the world. Accurate. Inside, at a corner table alone, sat Arya Karamati. She didn't look up when Ethan approached, just kept sharpening a machete with slow, rhythmic strokes. You cross? She asked without glancing at him. That's me. You're late. The plane had engine trouble. She smirked. No. You had whiskey trouble last night, probably. Your kind usually does. Ethan slid into the seat opposite her. My kind. Ex-cops. Ex-soldiers. Ex-something. Always running from ghosts. Ethan studied her. Her eyes were hazel but sharp as broken glass. Her accent carried hints of Portuguese, Spanish, and something older, something tribal. You've worked with outsiders before? He asked. Enough to know most die. Comforting. She wiped the blade clean. I don't guide dead weight. You keep up, you listen, you don't question me in the jungle. Understand. Fine. As long as you understand, I'm not here for sightseeing. Good, she said. There's nothing to see. Only things that see you first. Ethan leaned forward. Silva said, you know the Red Jaguar routes. I know where they hide, where they move, where they kill. She paused. And I know where they took your friend. Ethan's jaw tightened. Where? Arya pointed with the machete toward the dark, endless river outside. Upstream, deep into Javari territory. Her voice dropped. A place no one comes back from. Ethan's pulse thumped hard. When do we leave? Arya stood, threw some coins on the table, and slung a pack across her shoulder. We already have. Chapter 3 Into the Green Hell. The riverboat was barely more than a long wooden canoe with a patched motor that coughed like a dying animal every few minutes. Ethan Cross sat near the bow, one hand gripping the side as the Amazon spread out like a vast green ocean around them. Arya controlled the motor with one hand, machete within reach of the other. The deeper they traveled, the more the world behind them seemed to vanish. At first, there were fishermen, then houses on stilts, then isolated shacks, then nothing. Nothing but trees so thick they looked like walls. roots thicker than the arms of bodybuilders, vines hanging like snakes, the air growing hotter and wetter until every breath felt like inhaling soup. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. "You always start a trip like this?" he asked. Arya didn't answer. "You talk much." Ethan tried again. "No. Got it." Silence. Only the groan of the engine, the drone of insects, and the constant distant cries of animals. Monkeys, birds, maybe jaguars, echoing through the canopy. After an hour, Ethan finally spoke again. "Reyes and I worked this region once. 7 years ago. The Medellin cleanup. He saved my ass." Arya didn't look at him, but her voice softened just slightly. "Then we bring him back." Ethan nodded. The river narrowed, bending through curves that hid what was ahead until the last moment. A thick log stretched across the water. Ethan instinctively reached for his pistol. Arya raised a hand. "Don't." She cut the motor. The canoe drifted silently until the log moved. A black caiman, longer than their boat. It slid away, disappearing beneath the surface. Ethan exhaled. Arya restarted the engine. "You shoot at anything here," she said. "And 10 things shoot back. Animals, people." Ethan scanned the tree line. "You're saying we're being watched?" "Always." The river curved again. Suddenly, Arya cut the motor completely. "What now?" Ethan asked. She pressed a finger to her lips. The jungle had gone quiet. Dead quiet. No birds. No insects. No monkeys. Ethan's pulse quickened. "What does that mean?" Arya glanced at the water. "It means something is hunting." Before Ethan could ask what, the water behind them erupted. A spear shot out from the river, missing the boat by inches. Then another. Then shapes rose from the water. Dark silhouettes with painted faces, blowguns, and spears. Ethan reached for his gun. Arya grabbed his wrist. "Don't shoot." "Why not?" "Because they're not enemies. Unless you make them." She stood up in the boat, lifted both hands, spoke in a rapid indigenous dialect, rhythmic, almost melodic. Ethan didn't understand a word, but the figures halted. One stepped forward, half his face painted bright red. His eyes were sharp, older than his years. He spoke. Arya answered. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, Arya sat back down. "They'll allow us through," she said calmly. "They threw spears at us. That was a warning. That was almost a funeral." Arya smirked. "Then don't fall in." They continued upriver. Ethan leaned closer. "What did you tell them?" "That we're hunting red jaguar." "And that worked." Her expression darkened. "They hate the cartel more than anyone." The river widened again, and the sun dipped behind the canopy. Night was coming, and with night the Amazon changed. Chapter 4, Night of the Whispers. They set up camp on a small patch of mud near a fallen tree. Not a clearing. Cleared spaces didn't exist here, but a place where roots lifted high enough to offer shelter from rising water. Ethan gathered dry branches, hard to find in the wet jungle, while Arya built a small fire using a strange resin that burned clean and bright. As darkness fell, the sounds of the forest multiplied. Screeches, chirps, low growls. Something heavy moved in the trees overhead. Ethan tried to ignore it. Arya handed him a tin cup of hot tea. "Tastes like dirt," Ethan said. "It's not for taste. Keeps hallucinations away." Ethan stared. "Hallucinations from what?" "The insects, the air, the plants. Everything here has a price." Ethan took another sip. "This job gets better every minute." Arya sat across the fire. Her face glowed orange in the flickering flame. "You're not afraid of much," she said. "Not anymore." "Good. Fear feeds the jungle." Ethan poked the fire with a stick. "What about you?" She looked into the dark. "I respect it. That's different." Ethan studied her for a long moment. "Your tribe," he said quietly. "The Karamati. I've heard stories." Arya's eyes narrowed. "What stories?" "Trackers with senses sharper than animals. People who can follow footprints across rock. Listeners who can hear voices in the river." Her jaw tightened, maybe anger, maybe pride. "The stories exaggerate. she said, then paused. Some of them. Ethan leaned forward. What happened to your people? Arya didn't speak for a long time. Finally, Red Jaguar happened. Ethan froze. They came to recruit, to force the tribes to grow their plants, to clear land. My people refused. And they killed everyone who said no. Ethan swallowed. You survived. My mother hid me. She died before sunrise. Ethan looked down. Arya's hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. That's why you're helping Silva? Ethan asked. No. Silva helps me. I would have gone after Red Jaguar with or without him. Ethan nodded. A low growl echoed in the darkness. Ethan's hand moved to his pistol. Arya held up her palm. Don't. That close, and you don't want me armed? It's not hunting us, she said. How do you know? She tilted her head slightly. Because if it were, it wouldn't growl first. Ethan stared at her. This is going to be a long trip. Arya smirked. Sleep with one eye open. Chapter 5, The Village That Shouldn't Exist. By dawn, they were back on the river. Fog rolled over the surface like spilled milk. The jungle shimmered with humidity. Ethan felt every mosquito on Earth trying to bite him at once. After 2 hours, Arya steered the canoe toward a narrow tributary, a small, winding strip of water swallowed by vines. We shouldn't go off the main river, Ethan said. That's exactly why we are, Arya replied. Red Jaguar watches the wide channels. They don't expect anyone to use this path. The water here was darker, thicker. The canopy blocked the sun so completely it felt like twilight. Ethan rubbed his arm. You feel that? He asked. Yes. What is it? A warning. The tributary ended at a muddy bank. Arya anchored the canoe to a root and stepped onto land. Be quiet, she whispered. They moved through dense brush, Arya slicing vines with her machete in practice swings, Ethan following carefully. Minutes later, they reached a clearing. Ethan froze. A village. Small wooden huts. Empty hammocks. Abandoned fires. No bodies. No people. Just silence. What happened here? Ethan asked. Arya knelt and touched the dirt. Footprints. Drag marks. How long ago? 2 days. Maybe 3. Red Jaguar. Not alone. Ethan turned. What does that mean? Arya stood, eyes locked on the tree line. There are stories of a group living deep in the Amazon. Not tribes. Not hunters. Something else. Outsiders who went mad. People who worship the jungle. Who sacrifice. A twig snapped behind them. Ethan drew his gun instantly. Arya spun, raising her machete. A shape staggered from the trees. A man wearing torn clothes, covered in mud, eyes wide with terror. He collapsed at their feet. Arya dropped to her knees and held his face gently. Fala Kamigo, she whispered. Talk to me. The man choked out a single word. Demonios. Demons. Ethan translated. The man shook his head violently. And not demons, homens. Men, painted, like death. They came at night. Arya's face tightened. Red Jaguar. The man started to cry. No, worse. Before he could finish, the jungle rustled violently. Arya grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to move. Now. What about him? He's already dead. Ethan blinked. He's breathing. Look at his neck. Ethan did. A dart. Thin. Wooden. With red feathers. Arya's face went pale. Jungle poison. Strongest there is. The man convulsed, gasping. Then stopped. Ethan cursed. Who the hell uses poison like that? Arya pointed into the trees. The sound came again. Run. Whispers. Dozens of them. All around. Close. Arya stepped back. Chapter 6, The Painted Ones. They sprinted through the trees, branches whipping their faces, roots trying to trip them. The whispers followed, soft, rhythmic, inhuman. Ethan's lungs burned. Sweat dripped into his eyes. Behind them came the patter of bare feet on leaves. They're close. Ethan shouted. Don't shoot unless you see a face. Arya yelled. Why not? Because they'll know exactly where we are. The whispers grew louder. A shadow darted between trees, too fast to trace. Another appeared on a fallen log, painted white from head to toe, long dark hair, eyes black as oil. Ethan raised his gun. Arya slapped it down. Don't! The figure vanished. What the hell are they? Ethan demanded. Former tribes, Arya said breathlessly. Some kidnapped by cartels, others driven mad by isolation. They paint themselves white so the spirits don't see them. They serve whoever controls this part of the jungle. Red Jaguar. No. Something else. They slid under a branch, leapt over a root, pushed through thick bushes. Then the jungle opened. A ravine. Deep. Too wide to jump. Too steep to climb quickly. Ethan cursed. We're trapped. The whispers closed in, forming a circle in the trees. Arya scanned the ravine. No. Not trapped. She ran toward a massive hanging vine. Ethan stared. You've got to be kidding. Arya grabbed it, swung out over the ravine, flying across the gap like it was nothing. Landed on the other side, rolled to her feet, and waved. Come! Ethan looked behind him. White painted faces were emerging from the shadows. He ran, jumped, grabbed the vine, tore halfway. Shit! He swung only half the distance, crashed into the cliff wall, slid, grabbed a root, dangling over 20 meters of empty air. Arya sprinted to the edge and threw him her hand. Jump! Ethan let go. Arya caught his wrist, grunted, pulled, whistle. A dart flew past her ear. Another hit the dirt beside her. She dragged Ethan up just as 3 painted men appeared across the ravine, whispering in eerie unison. Ethan raised his gun instinctively. Arya stopped him again. Let the jungle hide us, she whispered. They backed into the foliage. The painted men didn't chase. They simply watched and smiled. Chapter 7, Rhea's Trace. They didn't stop moving for another hour. Finally, when Arya was sure they weren't being followed, they collapsed beside a fallen tree. Ethan wiped mud from his face. What were those things? Arya sat, breathing hard. They're called the Silent Choir. No one knows where they came from. They don't speak. They only whisper. They take people at night and give them to whoever leads them. Red Jaguar. Arya shook her head. No. Something else. Something darker. Ethan leaned back. How do you know? Because Red Jaguar doesn't use poison that strong. And they don't take whole tribes, only the ones they want. The rest they kill. Ethan sighed. So there's a cartel? And a cult. Arya nodded. Welcome to the Amazon. Ethan frowned. We still need a lead on Reyes. Arya opened her pack and took out a small bundle wrapped in leaves. Inside was a piece of fabric, dark green, ripped and blood-stained. Ethan froze. That's Rhea's shirt. Yes. Where did you get that? Found it by the river 2 days before I met you. Why didn't you tell me? Because if I told you he was bleeding when he passed through here, you might have turned back. I wouldn't have. I know, Arya said softly. That's why I didn't tell you. Ethan looked at the fabric again. The blood was dry, but the rip was clean, made by a blade. He was running, Ethan said quietly. Not just running, Arya added. Hunted. Ethan stood. Then we keep moving. Arya nodded. We follow the river from here on foot. Red Jaguar has a base near the Blackwater Basin. If Reyes is alive, that's where he is. Chapter 8, The Blackwater Basin. The Blackwater Basin was named for good reason. The water was dark as ink. Still, thick, reflecting the trees like a mirror. The air smelled metallic, slightly sweet, like rotting fruit. Ethan crouched beside the water. Something wrong with it? Yes, Arya said. What? It remembers. Ethan stared. Come again. Arya pointed at the water. It's too still. Everything in the Amazon moves. This doesn't. Something keeps the animals away. Like what? Death. Ethan scanned the opposite bank. Tracks. Boot prints. Fresh. Red Jaguar, he said. Yes. Arya crouched beside him. And they took someone across. Reyes. Likely. They followed the prince along the edge of the basin. Suddenly, Arya held up a hand. Stop. What? Listen. Ethan did. A faint sound echoed across the water. A voice. Muffled. Weak. Calling for help. Ethan's heart lurched. That's him. Arya grabbed his arm. No. Wait. That's Rhea's voice. No. It isn't. Ethan blinked. What? Arya's face was deadly serious. The basin has a spirit. Locals call it the mimicker. It repeats voices it hears. Sometimes after hours. Sometimes after years. Ethan swallowed. So Rhea's could be anywhere or nowhere near here. The voice came again, louder. Ethan, help! Ethan clenched his jaw. It sounded exactly like Rhea's. He lifted his pistol. I'm going. Arya blocked him. If you cross the basin, you will die. Then give me another route. Arya studied the tracks again. They didn't cross the water. They circled around. Then so do we. She nodded. Stay close. And don't listen to anything that calls your name. The voice behind them whispered. Ethan. Chapter 9 The Lab. The jungle thinned as they approached a massive fallen tree. Beyond it, smoke rose in small plumes. Arya held up her hand. Careful. They crawled forward and peered over the trunk. Ethan's stomach dropped. A clearing had been carved out, large, raw, ugly. Trees hacked down. Soil burned black. Tents erected. Barbed wire strung between poles. A red Jaguar camp. Dozens of men. Rifles. Generators humming. Chemical barrels stacked beside a half-collapsed shack. A drug lab. Arya whispered. This is new. Bigger than anything they built before. Ethan scanned the area. There. That shack. A man tied to a post. Head down. Barely conscious. Reyes. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Arya grabbed his shoulder. Too many guards to go in now. I'm not waiting. You won't survive 5 seconds. Ethan's jaw flexed. We need a distraction. Arya nodded slowly. Yes. Something loud enough to draw everyone away. Ethan smirked. I might have an idea. Chapter 10 The Fire That Opened Hell. Ethan scanned the clearing again, counting each guard, each rifle, each predictable movement. Cartel soldiers paced like bored wolves. Lazy but still deadly. Reyes hung slumped at the post, head down, chest rising only occasionally, like he was breathing through broken glass. Arya watched Ethan's expression tighten. You have something in mind, she whispered. Ethan nodded. Yeah, but you're not going to like it. You usually do things I don't like. Fair point. He slipped his pack off and began quietly assembling something metallic, aligning small pieces with careful precision. What are you building? Arya asked. Improvised incendiary. That's a polite way of saying bomb. Small bomb. Arya raised an eyebrow. In a jungle made of gasoline? Exactly. Her eyes narrowed. Explain. Ethan pointed toward a row of blue chemical barrels beside the shack. That's acetone. The other stack is ether. The lab's a tinderbox waiting for a spark. If I can blow one barrel, just one, the whole camp will panic. They'll rush to put out the fire or save the product. Arya nodded slowly. And while they're distracted, we get to Reyes. Exactly. Arya exhaled. It could work. It will work. She frowned. It could also kill us. Only if you throw like a rookie. Arya smirked. Give it to me then. Ethan shook his head. No. This is my throw. Arya didn't argue. But the way her jaw tightened said she wanted to. Ethan lit a long fuse made of resin-soaked vine. Arya whispered. Once you throw it, we move. Fast. Ethan nodded. He took a breath. And threw. The vine-wrapped bomb sailed through the humid air, spinning toward the barrels. It hit the ground, rolled, stopped right at the base of the acetone stack. The fuse burned down. Boom! Fire burst upward like a dragon's breath. The barrels detonated in a chain reaction, one after another, until an entire wall of flame roared through the clearing. Soldiers screamed, scattering like ants from a kicked nest. Arya grabbed Ethan's arm. Go! They sprinted through the smoke as gunfire erupted behind them. A guard spotted them. "Hey!" Arya threw her machete, not at him but at the rope holding a canopy tarp. The fabric collapsed on 3 men, tangling them long enough for Ethan to shoot out a generator, plunging the far half of the camp into darkness. They reached the post. "Reyes!" Ethan shouted. Reyes lifted his head, eyes swollen, lips cracked, but still alive. Ethan? "I've got you," Ethan said, cutting the ties. Reyes slumped forward. Arya pressed 2 fingers to his neck. "Weak pulse. Bad dehydration. He's been beaten. We have seconds." Gunfire tore through the smoke. The lieutenant, Red Jaguar's second-in-command, emerged with 6 men. "There!" he shouted. Arya grabbed Reyes. "Move!" Ethan fired 3 quick shots, dropping 2 guards. A bullet grazed his arm. He didn't feel it until blood ran down his sleeve. They fled toward the trees. The lieutenant shouted, "Don't let them reach the jungle." Ethan emptied his last magazine, covering Arya and Reyes as they slipped into the thick foliage. The fire behind them roared higher, and the jungle swallowed them whole. Chapter 11. Reyes speaks of the devil. They didn't stop running for a long time. Only once the gunfire had faded and the smoke thinned did Arya lower Reyes to the ground beneath a massive kapok tree. Ethan knelt beside him. "Stay with us, brother." Reyes coughed, blood on his lips. "You came. You actually came." "Of course I did." Reyes grabbed Ethan's shirt weakly. "You shouldn't have. You don't know what's coming." "What happened to you?" Ethan asked. Reyes swallowed hard. "It's not just Red Jaguar. They're different now. Stronger. United under a new leader." Ethan frowned. "Who?" Reyes shook his head. "No name. They call him O Espectro." Arya stiffened. "The Spectre," she whispered. Reyes nodded. "White mask. Voice like gravel. He controls the silent choir. The painted ones. He's building something. Something huge." Ethan leaned closer. "What?" Reyes clenched his jaw. "A fortress. Deep in the jungle. Hidden. Guarded by the choir. They're expanding. Kidnapping entire villages. For labor. For sacrifices. I escaped once, but they caught me." Arya lowered her head. "They're merging cartel and cult." Reyes grabbed Ethan again. "They're preparing for something big. A shipment. Bigger than anything the Amazon has seen." "When?" Ethan asked. Reyes winced. "A week. Maybe less." Ethan swore under his breath. Arya inspected Reyes' wounds. "He needs water, rest, medicine. We take him to Silva's extraction point." Reyes shook his head weakly. No extraction. You both have to go to the fortress. Stop them." "Not without you," Ethan said. Reyes' eyes softened. "You always were stubborn." He coughed again, harder. Ethan steadied him. "We're going to get you out. Then we'll end this." Reyes closed his eyes. "I saw him, the Spectre. I heard him speak. He's not like other cartel leaders. He believes the jungle is a god." Arya flinched. "And he feeds it," Reyes whispered. A branch snapped. Ethan's hand went to his pistol. Arya raised her machete. Reyes opened his eyes in terror. "They found us." A tall figure stepped between the trees, not wearing white paint, wearing a jaguar mask carved from wood. One of Red Jaguar's hunters. Ethan raised his weapon. The hunter hissed a single warning. "Els esteo vindo." Arya stiffened. "What did he say?" Ethan whispered. Arya answered quietly. "He said, they are coming." Chapter 12. The hunter who should have killed them. The jaguar-masked hunter stood motionless, chest rising slowly beneath layers of leather and bone ornaments. He carried a longbow carved from dark wood, the string glistening with oil. His muscles were tight, coiled like a predator ready to strike. Ethan kept his gun aimed. Arya stepped between them. "Don't," she whispered. "He isn't attacking." Ethan hissed back. "He's Red Jaguar." "No. Look at his mask again." Ethan looked. Up close, the mask wasn't painted cartel colors. It was cracked, old, worn. And the patterns carved into it weren't cartel symbols, they were tribal. The man slowly lowered his bow. Arya switched to the indigenous dialect, speaking quickly, cautiously. The hunter responded in short, clipped phrases. Ethan glanced between them. Translation would be great. Arya exhaled. He's not Red Jaguar. Not anymore. Meaning what? He was taken by them long ago, forced to hunt for them. But he escaped the choir 2 days ago. He's been hiding. He heard the explosions and came to warn us. Ethan lowered his gun slightly. What's he warning us about? Arya's jaw tightened. He says the choir is coming. Dozens of them. They followed our trail from the lab. Reyes groaned on the ground, barely conscious. Ethan looked at Arya. Can he help us get Reyes out? Arya asked the hunter. The hunter shook his head. He can't leave the jungle, Arya translated. He carries a curse. Ethan blinked. A what? Arya hesitated. The choir marks their hunters. With poison. Changes them. Makes them stronger at night, weaker in sunlight. They call it a blessing. He calls it a curse. The hunter pointed deeper into the trees and spoke again. Arya's eyes widened. What now? Ethan asked. He says taking Reyes to the river is death. The specter set traps along the bank. The only safe way is through the high canopy trails. Canopy? As in the treetops. Yes. Ethan stared at her. You're kidding. She wasn't. The hunter stepped forward, touched Reyes' forehead gently, then looked at Ethan with a strange mix of pity and respect. Then he said something else. Arya froze. What did he say? Ethan asked. Arya swallowed. He said you carry the scent of a man who will change the jungle. Ethan frowned. Is that good or bad? Arya didn't answer. The hunter turned and slipped into the foliage, vanishing silently. Ethan adjusted Reyes on his back. We move. Now. Arya nodded and led the way. Behind them, the jungle filled with whispers. The choir was close. Too close. Chapter 13, The Treetop Path. They climbed. The trunks rose like living towers, rough bark scraping their hands as they ascended. Arya moved first, then Ethan carrying Reyes, his muscles burning with every step. They reached the first platform, a massive branch thick as a highway. Above them, the canopy glowed with filtered golden light. Below them, only darkness. Ethan looked down. It's a long way to fall. Then don't fall, Arya said. They moved across thick branches, hopping from one to the next. It wasn't a built path, just a natural network of interlocking limbs, high above the ground. Ethan muttered, This is insane. Arya smirked. Welcome to my world. A distant whisper drifted from below. Ethan froze. Arya whispered, They're under us. Shapes moved beneath the leaves, white bodies shifting like ghosts. They can't climb this, Ethan said. Arya didn't respond. Then a painted face appeared below, staring up at them. Ethan raised his gun. Tell me they can't climb. Arya answered quietly. They can. The first figure began scrambling up the trunk like a spider. Ethan swore. Arya whispered, We need to move faster. They ran along the branches. Rhea's weight slowed Ethan down, but he refused to drop him. A branch cracked behind them. The first choir member reached the canopy, whispering in a feverish rhythm. Another climbed up. Then another. Go! Ethan shouted. Arya turned, swung her machete, severing a vine supporting a massive limb. The limb snapped and crashed downward, knocking several climbers off the tree. But more kept coming. Ethan reached the end of a branch that extended over a ravine filled with thick mist. Arya pointed to another tree across the gap. We jump. Ethan stared. With Reyes on my back? Yes. You're insane. Then be insane with me. Arya leapt first, graceful, precise, landing on the opposite branch with barely a sound. Ethan backed up, took a running start. Whispers rose behind him. He jumped. The weight of Reyes pulled him downward. Ethan's fingers caught the branch, slipped, caught again. Arya grabbed his arm and hauled him up. Branches shook behind them. They're getting closer. Ethan panted. Arya pointed ahead. There! A hollowed-out trunk, wide enough to crawl through, like a natural tunnel through the canopy. They dove inside. The whispers echoed behind them, but the choir didn't follow. Not yet. Ethan caught his breath. Why'd they stop? Arya listened. This tree is sacred. They won't touch it. Sacred to who? To the jungle. Ethan closed his eyes. Great. Even the trees are haunted. Arya smirked. Not haunted. Protected. Ethan adjusted Reyes again. Then let's hope it protects us long enough to get him out alive. They crawled forward into the darkness of the trunk. Behind them, the choir waited at the entrance, whispering Ethan's name. Chapter 14, The Fortress in the Roots of the World. The hollow trunk felt like a tunnel carved through the ribcage of some ancient beast. Roots spiraled above them, twisting into shapes that looked disturbingly human. Fingers, faces, ribs. Light filtered in through cracks, turning dust into floating gold. Ethan crawled with Reyes over his shoulder. Arya moved ahead, machete drawn even though the space was too tight to swing. Where does this lead? Ethan whispered. A sanctuary, Arya replied. Sanctuary from what? From everything. Ethan shook his head. You and your poetic riddles. They reached the end of the tunnel and stepped out onto a massive system of roots, thick as tree trunks, spreading in every direction like the foundation of a cathedral built by nature. Below them was a pit of fog so dense it looked like white ocean. In the center of the roots stood a small structure. Ancient, circular stone walls carved with patterns that didn't belong to any tribe Ethan knew. A hidden ruin. Arya's voice lowered. Welcome to the sanctuary of the first people. Ethan blinked. I thought that was a myth. Most truths start as myths. They crossed the roots and approached the stone hut. Inside, the air was cool, dry, safe. Arya laid Reyes gently on a bed of woven reeds. He was pale, breathing shallowly. Ethan checked his pulse. He's fading. Arya knelt beside him, pulling a pouch of herbs and powders. We have time. Barely. Barely is better than dead. Arya began mixing a paste. Ethan looked around the hut. Symbols carved into the walls showed figures battling an enemy painted entirely white. The silent choir, but older, ancient, like history repeating itself. He touched a carving. These things have been around for centuries? Yes, Arya said. And every generation thinks they are fighting them for the first time. Ethan swallowed. Arya, who leads them now? The choir. Arya hesitated. The specter. Who is he? A man who walked into the jungle 20 years ago and never came back. People say the forest claimed him. Others say he became its voice. And Red Jaguar? Are they working for him? No, Arya's eyes darkened. They fear him. Ethan frowned. Then why are they allied? They're not. They just happen to want the same thing. What thing? Arya met his eyes. Control of the Amazon. Before Ethan could respond, a faint rumble echoed outside. Arya stiffened. They found us. Ethan grabbed his gun. What do we do? Arya finished spreading the herbal mixture on Rhea's wounds. We hold the sanctuary. The choir won't enter it. What about Red Jaguar? They will. Ethan positioned himself at the entrance. Then let them try. Chapter 15, Siege of the Sanctuary. The first gunshot cracked the air like a lightning strike. Ethan ducked left as bullets shredded the bark above the entrance. Arya rolled to the side, grabbing 2 stone discs from the wall. Ancient weapons etched with symbols. More voices outside. Banish. Radio chatter. Orders barked. Red Jaguar had found them. At least 10 men, Ethan whispered. More coming, Arya corrected. Ethan leaned out and fired a controlled burst. A man screamed. Another ducked behind a root. The sanctuary shook with impacts. Red Jaguar soldiers advanced in tight formation, automatic rifles sweeping the area. They moved like a machine, efficient, deadly. Arya shouted, Ethan left. He turned and barely dodged a spear thrown with terrifying force. A white-painted choir hunter perched on a branch overhead, watching. Ethan hissed, They're working together now? No, Arya said. The choir is waiting. For what? For the winner. Ethan swore. Another burst of gunfire forced him back. Reyes groaned in the corner but remained unconscious. Arya slid beside Ethan. We need to break their line. With what? Harsh language. Arya held up the stone discs. These were used by the first people. They're weighted, balanced. Are they bulletproof? No. Fantastic. Arya smirked. Cover me. She sprinted out before Ethan could argue. Damn it, Arya. She leapt onto a root, slid behind a fallen trunk, then reappeared behind a soldier. The first disc flew, silent, fast, smashing into the back of his skull. He dropped. Another soldier turned. Ethan fired 3 shots, taking him down. Arya used the second disc to disable a gunman on the flank. Ethan moved out and hammered the other side with suppressive fire. For a moment, they had the upper hand. Then the jungle shifted. The roots trembled. Whispers grew louder. The choir was moving. Ethan saw white-painted figures crawling through the canopy like spiders, waiting for their chance. Red Jaguar soldiers noticed and panicked. One shouted, Los Brujos! No esi acercan. Another fired wildly at the trees. The choir answered in whispers. Arya ran back to the entrance. This is getting bad, Ethan said. This is the Amazon, she replied. It gets worse. As if on cue, a flare burst. Overhead, lighting the canopy blood red. A radio crackled. A deep voice spoke. Ethan froze. He knew that voice. Send in the fire teams. Burn everything except the target. Ethan whispered, Spectre. Arya looked at him sharply. You recognize him? Ethan didn't answer, because the truth terrified him. He did recognize the voice. He had heard it once years ago, on a mission that nearly killed him. The Spectre wasn't a myth. He was real, and he was coming. Chapter 18, The Depth That Should Not Exist. Ethan didn't fall into darkness. Darkness rose up to swallow him. Wind slammed against his face. His body spun. The world became a vertical blur of roots, stone, and ancient carvings rushing past him like the inside of a monstrous throat. Then, a thundering crack. He struck something hard, rolled, bounced, and finally slammed into a bed of tangled roots that caught him like a net woven by giants. His breath punched out of him. For several seconds he didn't move. Just the sound of distant rumbling. Fire, screams, and far above, faint, almost unreal, the voice of the Spectre. Follow him. Ethan forced his eyes open. He was lying on the side of a massive root, one as wide as a truck, stretching across a cavern so huge it felt like he had fallen inside the skeleton of the earth itself. Dim bioluminescent fungi glowed along the walls, painting everything in pale blue. Ethan pushed himself upright, wincing. Arya, Reyes. No response but the echo. He reached for his rifle. Miraculously still there. Mag half full. He checked his side, bruised but not broken. Then his eyes adjusted, and he saw shapes carved into the cavern walls. Not tribal markings. Not symbols. Maps. Layer after layer of maps covering the stone like an ancient archive of the Amazon's veins and arteries. Rivers, hidden lakes, burial routes, sacred zones. This was no sanctuary. It was a blueprint of the entire rainforest. Ethan whispered, Jesus. He stepped closer. One carving looked newer, cleaner, sharper lines, recently touched, recently used. A single symbol was etched beneath it, a circle split by a jagged line. Ethan froze. That mark. He had seen it once before. Burned into crates in a black site in Bolivia. Printed on documents he was never supposed to read. Stamped on the chest of a dying operative during the mission that ruined his life. The Spectre's symbol. A chill crawled up Ethan's spine. This wasn't built for him. He discovered it. Footsteps echoed above. Ethan spun, rifle ready. A body landed beside him with a bone-cracking thud. A red Jaguar soldier, dead on impact. He looked up. Another figure dropped down with effortless precision. White-painted skin, Bone blade, black, pupilless eyes reflecting the fungi light. Acquire hunter. It hissed. Ethan raised his rifle, pulled the trigger. Click. Out of ammo. Perfect. The choir hunter lunged. Ethan swung the rifle like a bat, slamming it into the hunter's jaw. Bones cracked. The figure staggered, but recovered fast, blades slashing across Ethan's arm, tearing through fabric and skin. Ethan gritted his teeth. You're faster than the others. The hunter tilted its head, analyzing him. Then it came again. This time Ethan ducked, grabbed the root net under his feet, and yanked hard. The hunter stumbled. Ethan drove his knee into its chest, grabbed the bone blade mid-swing, twisted, and rammed it into the hunter's throat. Silence. Ethan panted, wiping blood from his arm. That's when he heard it. Drip, drip, drip. He glanced at the wall. Behind the carvings, behind the layers of ancient mapwork, something red seeped through the cracks. Blood. Ethan's heartbeat thudded. That's not possible. Another drip. Another crack. Then the stone shifted. The map wall opened like a door of flesh. A figure stepped out. Ethan lifted his blade. Ready. But it wasn't the specter. It wasn't a soldier. It wasn't a hunter. It was a woman. Mid-30s. Indigenous clothing torn. Skin streaked with mud and blood. Eyes unfocused, traumatized. She stumbled forward. Ethan caught her before she collapsed. Hey, look at me. What happened? She clutched his vest, shaking uncontrollably. The specter, she whispered. He is not searching for the map. Ethan frowned. Then what? He already has it. Everything inside Ethan went cold. What did you say? The woman's lip trembled. He opened the heart root not to find the map, but to hide something inside it. To hide what? Her voice broke as she whispered. A key. Ethan stiffened. What key? She looked up. A key that wakes the forest. Before Ethan could ask more, shadows moved above. 3 more bodies fell. But this time, they landed on their feet. Choir hunters. Ethan pulled the woman behind him, blade raised. The hunters crouched low, bone knives glinting. Then something happened that froze Ethan's blood. They didn't attack. They bowed. Ethan kept his blade up. What the hell is this? One hunter whispered. Protector. Ethan blinked. Me? No. The hunter pointed upward. To him. Footsteps echoed. The cavern trembled. The specter dropped down into the heart root. He landed like a feather, and smiled. Chapter 19. The heart root awakens. The specter's presence filled the cavern. Not with words, not with gestures, but with a gravity that pressed down on Ethan's chest, as if the roots themselves recognized him or feared him. Ethan kept the woman behind him, clutching her arm. Reyes was still unconscious, but breathing, half hidden beneath a tangle of roots. Arya was nowhere in sight. Somewhere deeper, she must be planning, watching, surviving. The specter spoke softly. Do you see it, Ethan? Ethan's eyes flicked to the map wall. It glowed faintly from the fungi light, the carvings now pulsing with a rhythm that mimicked a heartbeat. The heart root. It's alive, Ethan muttered. Yes, the specter said. And it listens, chooses, it obeys. Not the weak, not the unworthy, only those who understand the cost of power. Ethan's hand tightened on his rifle. You're insane. The specter tilted his head. Perhaps, but the jungle, it has always been sane. It only punishes ignorance. A deep rumble shook the cavern. Dust fell from the ceiling. The roots twisted, elongating and intertwining, creating new passageways and sealing others. Ethan felt the floor move beneath his boots. Move, the specter commanded, and the choir hunters behind him echoed with whispers like wind over bones. Ethan spun, ready to fire, but they didn't attack. Instead, the woman whispered in broken Spanish. Protector, you must. Her words faltered as another tremor shook the cavern. Ethan didn't understand, but instinct screamed. She was warning him. The specter took a step closer. His obsidian eyes reflected the pulsing light of the heart root. "You've brought him here," he said, nodding toward Reyes. "The boy who carries the map, the future of what the first people protected. He is alive because of you." Ethan grit his teeth. "Then why are you here? To kill us?" "No," the specter whispered, voice sliding over the stones like silk and razor. "To awaken it." The cavern rumbled again. Roots shifted, creating a staircase-like spiral leading to a circular chamber at its center. Glowing runes lit the walls. The carvings from the map seemed to shift, realign, as though the forest itself was breathing. The specter raised his hand. The heart root pulsed faster, like a heartbeat racing towards something monumental. Ethan realized he wasn't standing in a sanctuary anymore. He was standing in the lungs of the Amazon, and whatever was about to awaken could consume everything. The woman stammered, "The key! It's inside you." Ethan looked down at Reyes. The boy stirred, half-conscious. Ethan felt the weight of the mission settle fully on him. Protect Reyes, survive the specter, and escape a forest that wanted to claim them all. The specter's hand hovered over the carvings. A single touch, and the heart root shuddered violently. Energy radiated outward, slamming Ethan against a root. Choir whispers intensified, echoing in his mind. "The heart root chooses," the specter said, "and it has chosen me. But it wants more. A protector, a bridge." Ethan Hale. Ethan's mind raced. This thing chooses people now?" "Yes," the specter said, eyes gleaming. "And it does not forgive weakness." Suddenly, the carvings on the wall flared bright white. A shockwave erupted from the heart root itself, knocking Ethan and the woman off their feet. Dust and leaves swirled, firelight casting impossible shadows across the cavern. Ethan scrambled to stand, gripping Reyes. Aria's voice echoed somewhere below, sharp, commanding, "Ethan, the map, activate it before he does." Ethan realized this wasn't just a battle against the specter. It was a battle to control the heart root itself. And the jungle was listening. Chapter 20, The Bridge Between Worlds. Ethan felt the cavern shift beneath his feet. The heart root pulsed like a living thing, vibrating with a rhythm that seemed almost sentient. His ears rang with the choir's whispers, a cacophony of voices layering over each other, telling him secrets he didn't understand. The specter stepped forward, hand brushing the glowing carvings. Energy shot along the walls, illuminating every root, every symbol. The air itself seemed to hum. "The key," the specter said, turning his gaze to Ethan. "Do you have the courage to wield it?" Ethan gritted his teeth. "I don't know if courage is enough." The specter smiled. "Courage alone never is." Arya appeared from a shadowed passage, moving like a shadow herself. In her hands, she held the map, the sacred artifact etched with the first people's knowledge. She thrust it toward Ethan. "Use it," she commanded. "The heart root responds to the map. Don't let the specter claim it first." Ethan grabbed the map. The instant his fingers touched it, the carvings in the walls pulsed, sending a surge of energy through him. The world blurred. The cavern expanded and contracted simultaneously. He saw visions. Rivers twisting into new paths, villages appearing and vanishing, the silent choir moving silently through centuries. The specter lunged. Ethan barely reacted in time, swinging a thick root like a battering ram. The specter blocked it, but the force sent shockwaves through the cavern, cracking walls of stone and roots. "Too slow," the specter hissed. Ethan felt a surge of instinct, of raw survival. He lifted the map, pressing it against the carvings on the heart root. The map glowed brightly, and the energy from the root coursed through his body, through his arms, into the very walls of the cavern. The specter staggered. "Impossible," he whispered. White-hot energy shot from the heart root, forming a bridge of glowing roots across the abyss. Choir whispers became voices, commands, warnings, history itself. Ethan could feel the forest choosing him, not the specter. Arya yelled, "Now! Take Reyes and move!" Ethan grabbed the boy, weaving through the twisting roots forming the bridge. Behind them, the specter roared in fury, striking the heart root with unmatched force. But the bridge held, glowing brighter with every step Ethan took. The woman they had rescued appeared beside them, guiding them along the corridor of roots. Faster! Before it shifts again. Red Jaguar soldiers and choir hunters struggled to navigate the bridge. Some fell. Some froze in place, paralyzed by the raw power emanating from the heart root. Ethan reached the far edge of the cavern. Sunlight, or something like it, broke through the foliage above. He looked back. The specter stood at the center of the cavern, glowing faintly with an unnatural light, the heart root thrumming like a pulse of the earth itself. "You may have won this moment," the specter said, "but the jungle never forgets." Ethan didn't respond. He clutched Reyes, pulling him across the bridge with Arya and the woman. Every step felt like leaving one world and entering another. Finally, they reached the edge of the cavern, and the heart root's glow receded, leaving only shadows and whispers behind. Outside, the Amazon stretched endlessly, alive, wild, and unknowable. Ethan exhaled. Sweat and blood streaked across his face. Reyes stirred, coughing but alive. Arya stood beside him, exhausted but determined. Ethan whispered, almost to himself, "The jungle, it chose us." Arya nodded. "And we'll have to live up to that choice." Behind them, deep in the roots, the specter's eyes glowed faintly, watching, waiting. The heart root had awakened, and the Amazon was no longer just a forest. It was a force, and they had only survived its first judgment. Chapter 21, Judgment of the Heart Root. The jungle was alive in ways Ethan had never imagined. Every leaf, every root, every gust of wind seemed to carry a warning or a demand. He tightened his grip on Reyes. The boy's breaths were shallow but steady, a fragile heartbeat amidst the chaos. Arya scanned the treeline, machete ready, eyes sharp. Behind them, the rescued woman trembled but kept moving, following the natural flow of the forest as if the Amazon itself guided her steps. Ethan turned back, staring at the cavern from which they had just escaped. The heart root's pulse still lingered in his chest, echoing with power, warning, and judgment. "They'll come," Arya said. "Red Jaguar, choir, the specter. They won't let us leave the heart root alive." Ethan shook his head. "Does it matter? We have the map. We have Reyes. We survived the heart root's judgment. That counts for something." "Counts for everything," Arya corrected. "But surviving isn't enough. We have to act now." The forest ahead opened into a wide riverbank. Ethan could see a rickety canoe hidden among the reeds. It was their only escape route through the Amazon. But something in the air told him it wouldn't be simple. A rustle behind them. Ethan spun, rifle raised. Choir hunters emerged silently from the undergrowth, pale faces glinting in the filtered sunlight, bone knives in hand. Red Jaguar soldiers followed, armed and ready. The specter, the epicenter of control, appeared last, gliding like a shadow across the riverbank. "End of the line," the specter said, voice calm but filled with authority. "You cannot outrun what the jungle chooses." Ethan's mind raced. Every second counted. Every root, every leaf, every shadow was alive, waiting. "Now!" Arya shouted, sprinting toward the canoe. Ethan followed, clutching Reyes. The specter raised his hand, and the forest seemed to obey. Roots shot out from the riverbank, entangling soldiers, flipping canoes, pulling them back. The water churned unnaturally, as if the river itself was resisting them. Ethan fired at the approaching soldiers, each shot precise, each movement calculated. Arya hurled stone discs, disabling multiple attackers at once. The rescued woman moved like a phantom, cutting through the undergrowth, guiding Reyes and Ethan toward the canoe. A white-hot energy suddenly erupted from the specter, blasting the roots back and creating a path. Choir hunters hissed in unison but did not advance. They were frozen, reverent, as if in awe of their master. Ethan's mind sharpened. There was only one way. He had to challenge the specter at the heart root source, where its power was strongest. "Arya, cover us," I have to end this. She nodded, eyes burning with determination. We'll hold them here. Make it count. Ethan sprinted, roots and river converging toward him, energy of the heart root pulsing, alive, aware. The specter lifted the map from its resting place on the cavern floor, Rhea's map glowing faintly in its carvings. You cannot control it, Ethan shouted. The heart root isn't yours. The specter smiled. It chooses, and it chose me before it chose you. Ethan lunged, grabbing the map. Energy surged through him, connecting him to the heart root, making the roots pulse and the river shimmer. For a moment the world blurred, and then he realized the heart root responded to intent, to courage, to sacrifice. He pushed the specter back, channeling all his will into the map. The specter struggled, fighting, screaming, trying to control the roots, but Ethan's connection was stronger, purer. Roots ripped from the earth, choir hunters fell, red Jaguar soldiers scattered. The specter screamed as energy exploded from the heart root, blasting through the riverbank and carving a path of light. Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted, holding Rhea's close. The specter, weakened and defeated, slumped against a massive root, eyes dimming. Arya ran to them, her face streaked with blood and sweat. Is it over? Ethan nodded. For now. The heart root, it trusts us. But the Amazon is never done. It's alive. It remembers everything. The rescued woman approached, trembling. The specter, he's gone? Ethan shook his head. He's still here, in some way, but the heart root made its choice. We survived its judgment. That's what matters. The river calmed. The forest seemed to breathe in relief. Birds, insects, and monkeys returned, cautiously, as if acknowledging the new order. Ethan looked down at Reyes. The boy's eyes opened wide, alive. Arya put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You did it. We did it. Ethan exhaled. The heart root's glow faded, leaving the jungle alive, mysterious, untamed, but no longer hostile to them. And for the first time, Ethan understood. Surviving the Amazon wasn't about strength. It was about respect. And the jungle had granted them that gift.